Okay, fine. I'll be the villain. I'll say the hard thing. Your beliefs are either building the life that you've always wanted or destroying it. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're always stressed, bitter, angry at the world, and just plain stuck, you might be doing it to yourself. Welcome to the Inheritance Podcast. Yeah, I get it. It's not the popular thing to tell people the truth these days, especially if it's a harsh reality. But listen, if I had to learn it, so can you. I get it. It's not fun to be stuck with the man in the mirror, and that's it. But I'm not about lying to you. I want what's better for you. I want you to inherit the life that you've always deserved. And that comes with me telling you the truth here. And I'm just going to say it. Your brain believes you. You are what you think. And that sounds really harsh. And that is not a fun thing to say out loud. But I learned it and it did me so many favors. And in this podcast, we talk all of the time about the things that are not serving us and the things that are not doing us any favors. And oftentimes, a lot of the things that we discuss here center around what's up in here, what's up in your brain. What are the thoughts that are running wild? What are the beliefs that you have about yourself? And how changing those things and bettering those things and focusing on rewiring those things actually creates the life that you've always wanted. It has nothing to do with forcing the world, like using the force to make the world bend to my will. Trust me, if we all had the ability to use the force to make the world bend to our will, I guarantee you none of us would have depression, none of us would struggle with anxiety, none of us would be poor. The things that we think need to happen in order to make our experience of life better, those are not the solutions. It's often the high road. It's often the harder solutions that focus inward that actually are the solutions to our problems. And so today we're going to be talking about what we believe and how it shapes our reality. And we're going to dive into a little bit of some scientific statistics on how your brain interprets the information that it is given and how you can influence your brain to interpret that information from a different standpoint to reshape your reality. I mean, it sounds a bit woo-woo, but I promise it's real. And it just boils down to choosing to have a better day, and hence you have a better day. But we're actually going to talk a little bit more about some practical things and some practical examples that maybe you yourself might be dealing with, and maybe things that you're facing in your reality, whether it's in a professional or personal setting. So let's dive right in. I just want to ask you a question. How do you think about yourself? When you look in the mirror, how would you define yourself? How do you perceive your self-worth? What do you see in your abilities? And in essence, what do you think about the world around you? Because all of this literally shapes your reality for better or for worse. So we're going to start with point number 1, which is belief is biology. Your brain is always listening. So the core principle here is that the brain doesn't filter truth from lie. It believes what you tell it over and over again. Basically the definition of neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to rewire based on repeated thought patterns. So in essence, what you permit in your mind, what you permit in your thoughts is basically what your brain kind of attaches itself to in terms of what's reality for you. Your brain doesn't have a conscience. That's your job. It's your job to take control of this and filter it. Oftentimes I feel like we live our lives on autopilot and we just allow information to fly through our brain without being proactive about filtering what it is that's coming through. We just allow certain conversations to come right through here, in one ear and out the other, and we don't dissect any of the words that were said. We don't think about the things that are sitting in here. We just kind of allow stuff to happen. And it's not our brain's job. Our brain does not have a beating heart and a conscience to do that for us. That's our job. But oftentimes we just kind of let life happen. And our brain is just a filing cabinet storing all of that information. There's nothing that the brain can do to fix that. It's just the way that it's wired. And so when we take that information and we review certain things over and over and over again, and we repeat those thoughts, and when we ruminate, we start to construct belief patterns, which in essence is this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire based on repeated thought patterns. That becomes, in essence, your belief. And that's how it happens. Neuroplasticity is just the more you think a thought, the more it becomes automatic. If you don't know anything about psychology, if you haven't had like a therapeutic session with an actual psychologist, you've probably never heard this term before, but I have had many therapeutic sessions where we talk about this. And it is the concept of forming neural pathways in your brain. And basically, it's a big divot in your mind that as you think a thought over and over again, the more that you think it, the faster that you go from point A to point B in that thought, that creates a belief. And it becomes a highway of thought where you are more efficient when you are fed information. Say that you look in the mirror and you see yourself and you look really frumpy and you're just having a bad day. And you run to point B, which is a thought that you think about that. And you say, oh, I'm ugly and this is why I'm single. And the more that you do that, the more that you have information similar to that experience when you see yourself looking frumpy in the mirror, you'll have other similar information that is fed to you through life, whether it's from you or from outside sources that re-emphasize that divot in your brain. And you jump from point A to point B faster and faster and faster until you build a belief system around why you're single based off of your own original self-perception in that moment. And that's a really, really bad example, but it is essentially just the more that you think a thought, the more that it becomes a neural pathway in your brain that is a highway of belief, and you drive on that every day. Other things that happen in your brain that have to do with the biology of your belief is the amygdala and your fear response. Let's break that down. When you constantly tell yourself it's not safe to try, whatever it is that you want to try, if you want to try to write a song, if you want to try to invent something, if you want to try to build a business or whatever, if you constantly tell yourself it's not safe, it's not safe, it's not safe for whatever reason, your brain wires in a fear response as the default. That fear response is the backing of that belief. Allowing negative thoughts constantly is going to increase your stress hormones, which is cortisol, leading to burnout, fatigue, and even illness. There are physical repercussions to the things that we allow ourselves to think. And the things that we allow ourselves to think, if it's constantly negative, yes, it can cause a negative belief about ourselves or the world around us, but it can also have physical repercussions. Burnout, fatigue, and illness are some very low level examples of this, but it is definitely something that you should be aware of, that as your brain starts to grasp onto the thought tighter and tighter and tighter, and it becomes a belief, as your stress hormones raise in your body, it wears itself out. Your body wears itself out from constant stress. Nobody wants to live in constant anxiety, but when you grasp harder and harder and harder onto negative thinking and your cortisol raises, it's going to cause anxiety, it's going to cause stress, it's going to cause fatigue and burnout and illness. And that is the reality of what happens scientifically in the chemicals in your brain when you permit negative thinking over and over and over again. So the big point in all of this science, because I am not somebody who majored in science. I'm not like a biologist or anything, but you need to understand that what you believe either builds the life that you want or it protects the one you're afraid to leave. Why does all of this matter? Well, believe it or not, your beliefs become barriers. So if you are experiencing any sort of real world blockers or obstacles in life, your beliefs could be the reason why you are having these barrier issues. Let's talk about some examples of destructive belief systems. So I'm just going to give you some random examples here. So I'm not creative leads to never starting the art, never picking up the paintbrush, never picking up the pencils, never buying the sketchbooks, which could lead to a business, which could lead to selling your art, which could lead to being at conferences, having a gallery. The dream. Here's another one. People like me never make it. I don't know who like me is, but that thought is one very many people think. And that leads to the fact that you never even try to break the cycle. I don't have time. It's a great excuse. Yeah, the day flies by quickly. You get tired. You're working all day. I totally get it. But the reality of saying that, it could mean I don't believe I'm worth the effort. I don't believe I'm worth making time to pursue this or something similar. Another classic one that I've always heard is, I've always been like this. Like, girl, same. I have always had this. It is run in my family. It has always been this way. I get it. And I've seen so many TikToks recently showing like breaking cycles in their family. And it said it ran in my family until it met me. It's like, you have to make a choice of I'm going to change this. What's in here in my brain? And stop saying, I've always been like this, I always will be like this, because then your brain stops looking for a solution to grow past it. Whether it's, I've always been like this in terms of I've never had the information and never had the tools in order to be successful. I've always been like this in terms of I'm weak and I want to be strong. I want to go to the gym. I want to lift weights, but I've always been weak. It's just the more that you permit these types of thoughts, the more that your brain starts to stop looking for a solution outside of that. And I get it. I get that these things can be kind of overwhelming and they have their roots. They have things that have happened to you as a child to create these thought patterns, and they feel real, and they are real. The things that happen to us when we're kids are very real things that we need to process. But just because something happened to you doesn't mean that that is now your entire identity for the rest of your life. Let's talk about where these beliefs can come from. So childhood reinforcement, that's one I just mentioned, being told what you are or aren't. That's a really big thing, because when you're a kid, your mind is very malleable. You're looking to your parents or whoever's raising you as somebody to kind of reinforce your self-worth and reinforce your identity. And a lot of times what ends up happening is that those who are raising us, they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. Wrong things get said. You're told you'll never amount to anything as a child. And because your mind is so sensitive at young ages, and because you have no other point of reference as a child, and you're looking to that adult figure to give you guidance and they fail you, then it can create a problem with your identity and your self-worth. So another one is going to be a repetition of failure without learning a new approach. And this one is hard. I've spoken in other episodes on my podcast about failing and how I have had my fair share of failures and identity crises and all of this stuff, because a lot of us put our self-worth in what we do and in what we produce. And so when we fail, it feels like a giant no written on our forehead that we should give up. And it is hard not to take those things personally and wear it as a label, but failure is a learning opportunity. If you can't learn from failure, then you will let it identify you and you will let it label you. We have to be able to see failure as something that is not personal, but that is a big thing in terms of what can form your false core beliefs and what can form like really bad beliefs about yourself. Another one is going to be trauma and protection. So failure once felt painful, your brain now guards you from future risks. Whatever that looks like, whether it is that you put yourself out there and you got married and then that marriage fell apart and you've been divorced, and that is traumatic and it is very painful. And so you want to go and put yourself out there again, but the idea of failing in that is very, very painful. And so what your brain does is it kind of like creates a barrier around itself with a belief about marriage or a belief about you in marriage. And it is trying to preserve you and it's trying to protect you, but all it's doing is holding you back. And you have to confront those things. You have to bring yourself back into a truth that is not associated with trauma. Another one is going to be a cultural or environmental programming. Example, get a safe job, or people who are rich or selfish. Those are things that like someone programmed in you, whether it was culturally or environmentally, whether you were growing up in an environment and that was something that was said to you, like don't take risks, don't start a business, just go and work for someone else. And then that way your responsibility to the job is just to show up. You don't have to be responsible for other people. You don't have to have a risk where you could fail. And a lot of these things create beliefs about ourselves based off of external things that now we've internalized. And all of these things that happen to us and all of these things that were wired within us, whether we were kids or maybe it was trauma that we never dealt with, become real world barriers that our brain gets stuck in. And so then when we want to go and start a company, or we want to go and get into a new relationship, or we want to put ourselves out there and make new friends, or start a podcast, or whatever, our brain gets stuck with those original barriers if they are never dealt with. And then we find ourselves making excuses when we get ready to cross that threshold and put ourselves out there in that relationship. And then we say, oh, but I remember that this went south last time, or I remember that they said I would amount to nothing. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And then we don't cross that threshold. Then we don't take that next step. And when we don't take the next step because we're stuck in the things that we believe about ourselves and in the things that we believe about the world around us, whatever that looks like for you, it's dangerous to stay there. It's dangerous to allow those beliefs unconfronted and unresolved, because what can happen next is the part that I want us all to avoid. And this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to talk about in this podcast, because I've seen it in myself. And it is that when you allow your beliefs to just be formed by your childhood, by your trauma, by external things, if the majority of your beliefs are negative, your perspective of the world is negative, the only thing that you'll be left with your excuses when you don't pursue your dreams and your goals, when you don't act on your opportunities when you could, simply because of what you believe about yourself, the only thing you're going to be left with is bitterness and resentment at those who do end up where you want to be. And this is what self-abandonment looks like. This is where self-sabotage comes in. Statistics and just basic people watching shows us that what you believe determines who you become. And you can want and dream and desire all day long to be a professional athlete. And you can desire to go to the Olympics. And you can see it in your mind's eye, you winning the gold medal. But if you never believe that you are worth that, if your beliefs tell you that what your parents said about you never amounting to anything is more true and holds more weight in your mind, then you'll never set foot in a gym. You'll never sign up for a mentorship where you can be professionally developed to become an athlete. You'll never take any steps towards what it is that you want for yourself, no matter how badly you want it, because you're allowing your thoughts to be rooted in something that needs to be confronted. It's really sad, because people want all day long to have money. And they want to be in better physical shape than they currently are. And they want to have a successful business, or they want to whatever. But no amount of wishing and hoping and crossing your fingers and pinky toes and all of that stuff is going to make anything happen for you. Who you become is all centered in this thing over here, the belief. Do you believe that you are a successful person? Do you believe that you can be? Or do you believe that you'll never amount to anything because it's what you were told? Or do you believe that you only are worth the failure that you've had in the past? What are you clinging to more in your mind? What you think determines what you feel. It determines how you act, which determines who you become. When we get stuck in our beliefs, and when we get stuck in our thoughts about who we are and who we're worth and what we're worthy of and what we're not worthy of and what other people think and who they've determined us to be, we don't take action when we have the opportunity. When the door gets open to us to pursue the dream, we don't move. We stay put. And then 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, we see somebody that is actually making headway in something that we wanted. And you know what ends up happening? We become bitter and resentful of that person. We point the finger at them. There is so much power in what you believe and what you think, but we have been fed the lie that it's the world that needs to cater to us, rather than fixing what's in here to make the world what we see that it is in here. Before we hop into the next point, I'm going to share with you our sponsor for this week's video and podcast, and that being Elevate Collective Marketing, my own company, who has rolled out a merch line that you should totally check out. For all of our self-starters, all of our dreamers who kind of like do their own thing and lead their own way, I've designed some merch just for you. You can browse and shop my new merch line. the YouTube University line on my brand new website that has been launched via the link in the description of this video and this podcast, or you can go to www.elevatecollective.info. That's www.elevatecollective.info, and shop for all of your YouTube University merch to sport next to your other college friends and show them up on the self-starter, dreamer, and go-getter that you are. Well, when we don't pursue the things that we want because we believe that we're not capable, or we believe that we're not worthy, or we cling to negative thoughts and feelings and we let our cortisol get raised, we're experiencing burnout and fatigue because we're not confronting anything or whatever, we ignore ourselves. We are the ones that get put on the back burner. We ignore our desires, we silence our gifts, and we say, no. I'm really not that great. Anybody else could do it, but not me. And then we sabotage our efforts. So the door of opportunity gets opened because we've made some sort of headway, but then we have that barrier again. And then we're like, oh, but you know what? I just think people would think that like this is cringe. So I'm not going to go forward with it. But then we see other people are living the life that we wanted. Then we try to make excuses again because that's all that we've done. We've made excuses over and over again in order to try to self-soothe and make ourselves feel better about why we're not taking action, because it's painful. It's painful to realize that you could have been there because you were on the same level as someone who is now there and you're not. You're still here. And so we make excuses and we point the finger and we say, oh, well, they had a leg up. Oh, they had money. Oh, they had connections that I didn't have, blah, blah, blah. You don't know that for sure. I mean, I do think that some people have legs up here and there, but at the end of the day, we all have the same hours in a day. We all breathe the same amount of oxygen. We all have the ability to make use of the 7 days that are in our week, the 30, 31, depending on the month, days in a month, the 365 days in a year. We all have that. It's just some people, they don't move. They don't get out of here. They don't confront this. They don't carve new neural pathways. They just let it run on autopilot and then wonder why 5 years down the road, they are still in the same spot. And it sucks. Trust me, I get it. I have been there many times. But you need to realize that this is not serving you. Just allowing yourself to be bitter and resentful towards someone else who makes it just because you didn't, it's not serving you. But in case you're feeling like, this ain't me, this is not landing, I'm going to take you through some examples of maybe some things you might have done just to have a little reality check. You might have been a little bitter, a little resentful. Here's what happens mentally. Projection. So you criticize them for getting lucky or selling out. Like I said, you just try to make excuses for why you're not there and why they are. And as nice as it is to just kind of like stroke your own ego for a little bit by saying, oh yeah, they had a leg up, it doesn't give you a leg up. You just stay stuck. Don't do that. You get resentful. You hold grudges against people for doing what you never gave yourself permission to do. You get mad at them. That's what resentment looks like. You're mad that they are having that success when you could have easily taken the steps. Maybe it would have been more steps. Maybe it would have been more difficult. It would have been more challenging. It would have required more of you. Yeah, I get it. But like at the end of the day, they're there and you're not. And it's hard and it's frustrating. And so you just get mad at them. A lot of times the reason why we find ourselves in these places is because we want to play the victim and we want to make ourselves feel better for another failure. Repeating that cycle, it is not going to put you in the rooms that you want to be in, and it's not going to sit you at the tables you want to be sat at. Another emotion that you're going to feel is bitterness. This is the thing that I really want you to understand. Bitterness is very dangerous because it will affect your health. It has physical ramifications. You will have chronic stress because you will be obsessed over them. Your relationships will deteriorate, especially if you are bitter towards someone that you know you will deteriorate your relationships. You won't have any vision for your life, not physically, but you won't be able to envision anything for yourself because you are obsessing over this other person and you are bitter towards your situation. If I can advise you on anything, if you are experiencing any of these emotions, if you're experiencing any of these things, these thought patterns and making excuses for yourself and being angry at the world, not only is it not serving you, but it's hurting you. Please do not continue down the resentment and bitterness pathway. And I hate to say it, but I see so many people online doing this. And as much as I at times feel that fellow anger, as much as I feel that fellow resentment, and it is frustrating. The situation sometimes, you don't get handed the best cards, and I get it. At the end of the day, when I walk away from watching them crash out or whatever, they are still in the same position that they are in. And just getting frustrated about it and just letting that be the only thing that happens will not produce anything else. Let that be a wake-up call if you're there. I want you to understand that resentment is often regret turned outward. When we regret that we didn't take action and now we see that someone else has, the only person that we're really mad at is ourselves. But because it hurts, it's often too painful to really be mad at this person. It's just easier to be mad at the world. Even if you are angry at the world, the only person that you're hurting is you. Let's talk about ways to break out of this. Let's talk about ways to overcome. So we're going to reprogram the mind. And that may feel like, oh my gosh, Frankenstein over here. We're going to just open up our brain for the doctor to do his work. But it's really not that deep. It's really not that complicated. We make it a lot harder than it needs to be. We're going to make our beliefs work for us. We're going to daily shift our mindset. And you can do this in small ways in order to build that muscle, in order to get familiar with what it is that you permit and hear. Start small. So reinterpret your experience. Say that you do go into your bathroom and you see that you're looking frumpy and you're like, oh God, I'm so ugly. This is why I'm single. Reframe the information that you are receiving in your mind. I just woke up. Sometimes we roll off on the wrong side of the bed. Sometimes, depending on where I'm at in the month, if you catch my drift, sometimes I just am not feeling that great. And it's fine. I'm a human being. I don't need to expect myself to look perfect the second that I wake up in the morning. That's silly. So when you experience a failure, when you experience a rejection, reinterpret that. This isn't failure, it's data. I am processing. I am learning. What can I learn from this? Another thing that I would really encourage you to do, especially if you have a lot of very negative information and a lot of negative thoughts, whether they are from external things like your childhood, or you've had a lot of trauma, or you just are really, really hard on yourself. For me, I'm very hard on myself. I have a perfectionism bend that can really hinder me from making decisions because I just become paralyzed in my analysis. I would encourage you to do affirmations and then also act on those affirmations. So in the morning, start with telling yourself, I can do this. I can go to work and have a great day. I can do my makeup and feel pretty. I can put on some nice clothes and feel pretty. I can whatever, blank. And then act like it's true. Believe that. I've said this to many people. Sometimes you have to say it enough times out loud. Mind you, we are doing this out loud. Sometimes you have to say it until you believe it. So I understand this is not going to happen overnight. I understand that you are not going to be a brand new person tomorrow. I get it. Just start with the affirmations, saying them over and over and over again. Start your day with the affirmations and say it over and over and over and over again until it becomes a belief, something that is easier to act on, and then adapt that as the belief for the day. Another thing that we're going to do in order to reprogram our mind is we're going to visualize. And this may be hard for some people who have lost the ability to envision things for themselves because of what they believe about themselves, or believe about their futures, or believe about the world, or whatever. But we're going to visualize. So you will see yourself doing the thing successfully. So you'll close your eyes, whatever that is, starting that business, doing the podcast, going to the conference and being on this stage, being an industry leader. You know, a lot of the people that are successful in big, massive ways, they had to have vision for it where no one else had vision. They had to believe when no one else did. And often it starts with seeing it in here before it's ever real out there, because our reality is shaped by this thing and we have to make it work for us. We can't just let it go on autopilot, because then we're just going to take the information from the world that says you're not capable of doing anything, and then we're going to believe that and then do nothing and then be mad at the world. I don't know why we are that way, but that's exactly what happens. And so if you want more for your life, you have to make this see it. You need to prepare your mind to believe in it when no one else is going to believe in it. You need to prepare your mind to champion you when no one else sees. They don't have the vision. You do. We can't expect someone to want something for us if we don't want it for ourselves. It all starts with us and our brain. Another thing is going to be identity statements. You've got to reprogram your identity and stop having every ounce of your identity hang on these things that other people have said that you are worthy of, or other people have determined your identity based off of XYZ. You need to understand that identity changes are stronger than goal setting. So you can say all day long, like, oh, I want, I wish, I hope. But if you believe you are not worthy in your identity, you say, I'll never amount to anything, or I'm too weak, I am worth nothing, then no amount of I hope, I wish, I dream, you're always going to have that roadblock of, nope, I'm not worth that. So confront the identity first. I am stronger than this. I am wise. I am smart. I am gracious. Even if you don't feel like it, it's not about feeling, it's about declaring. Another big thing that will help you is doing some gratitude training and just expressing gratitude. This is big because not only is it proven to lower stress and increase resilience, but it also reframes your perspective of the world around you. Last year, I was experiencing some pretty heavy depression and loneliness, and the only thing that I could see, like it was like my entire perspective was shrunk down to about this size. And when I was in the depths of my despair and I was just utterly lonely, all I could see was, well, I have no friends here. I only have my husband. My family's on the other side of the country. No one even sees me. I don't see people. I'm so lonely, blah, blah, blah. In order to overcome that, I did some gratitude statements and I started journaling, and I would write the people that I had met when I'm just around town. And honestly, like I spent a lot of time just being grateful for my husband, and that really reshaped how I visualized my life here. But then it also, as I was working on just being grateful for Alex, and I was grateful for FaceTime. Like I may not have my family here, but I was grateful that I could call them and I could see their face. As I just continued to list things that were still on my side, maybe it's not exactly what I would have wanted, but it's still there, and just be grateful for that. It completely reframed how I viewed my life here. And I wasn't as lonely and I wasn't as depressed. I ended up putting myself out there. I went and got a part-time job, and I made some incredible friends because of that. But it all started with me being able to be grateful. And as I was grateful, it reframed my perspective of my experience here and my experience during that time. And that leads me to my last point, which is journaling and self-tracking. So writing all of this down gives you a frame of reference in your growth journey. And I've said this before, so I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on it, but I would really encourage everybody to take time to journal. It also helps you work on your internal narrative. So if you have like a negative thought or negative core beliefs and you write that down, in real time, you can respond to those things. So if you write like, oh, I'm ugly and I'm single because of this XYZ and people hate me and I have no friends. And then you read that and you're like, wow, that was dramatic. Because it's like you're purging that out of your system. You're able to write it down and then be like, I don't actually believe that. Here are maybe some decisions that I've made in order to hinder my relationship journey and hinder my goals in this. Not saying that you'll immediately just flip a switch like that, but it will give you a frame of reference in your growth journey, and it will help you kind of see where your internal narrative is at currently, and maybe give you a place to evaluate that and also respond and reframe it in real time. I just want to say that this is so important for both a personal setting, like your personal goals and dreams and your vision for your life, and a professional setting. Believing that you're unworthy of love, for example, in a personal setting, it will cause you to choose people who affirm that. And I really want to drive that point home. Believing that you're unworthy of love doesn't necessarily mean you'll never be in love, or you'll never have love, or you'll never be in relationships with people who don't love you or whatever. It will actually mean that you will attract people who will affirm that you're not worthy of proper love, of whole, healed love, because that's what you're looking for. You need to understand that what you believe about yourself will attract things that will reaffirm those beliefs, but it will also create the reality that is around you. I experienced this in my personal life. I had a lot of false core beliefs years ago that I confronted in therapy, but for a long time I was stuck in a cycle of certain people that I would permit in my dating relationships and in my friendships who just were not my friends, and they were not good to me. I'd have this horrible time, and I just was so sad and depressed when I would be with them, and then we would break up, and I'd be like, why did I even tolerate that? I would get into a relationship that was similar to that, but like different font, And then I would beat my head against the wall again when I finally like got rid of them. Like, why am I doing this? And when I went to therapy, this was the topic that we discussed. It all centered around what I believed I was worthy of. And that was the reality that I shaped for myself. Those are the friends that I allowed because that's what I believed I was worthy of. I mean, consciously, like I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. But you need to understand that like your thoughts are that powerful. And so changing your beliefs will shift your standards, but it all centers around what do you believe you're worthy of in a personal example. A professional example would be believing that you're not business material. If you're really, really wanting that new job or that promotion, or you want to start that small business and be an entrepreneur, it'll keep you dependent on whatever it is that you're currently in. Sometimes it seems like comfort is the better option and the better answer. But the reason why often we choose the comforting situation, we choose the comfortable space, is because we believe that we're not capable of handling more and be more. It all centers around here and who we see in the mirror. It's both personal and professional. You wouldn't think it consciously, but your subconscious neural pathways that frame your reality all come back to your core beliefs about yourself that you need to reshape. And that's why this is so important. And it's why I get so frustrated when I have conversations with people, and I get so frustrated at myself. Like, trust me, I am someone that I get super frustrated with in regards to this. I mean, I can't change people's situations for them. And oftentimes I see a lot of people who are bitter and resentful towards other people who are where they want to be. And I know what that feels like because I've been there. I've done it. Like, the only person who can get us there is ourselves. But because it's really painful to admit that, we just want to point the finger at other people and we want to make excuses because that's the easier thing to do. And it breaks my heart to see people who are stuck and they want more for themselves, but they get trapped by these barriers and they get stuck and they can't grow and they don't want to because it's easier to just make the excuses rather than reframing their mind and reprogramming their mind. It is tough, but is it worth it? Is it worth it to be the person you always dreamt you could be, that you can be? Because someone with half your talent and double your confidence is doing it. That's the only thing separating you from them. Someone with half your talent and double your confidence is living the life that you want simply because they did the work. And you didn't. That is a gut punch. But at the end of the day, in 5 years, I don't want to be here. I don't want to still be in the same rut, wishing and hoping and crossing my fingers and pinky toes that my life will be better. I have to make it happen. And it all starts here. If I don't believe I'm worthy of it, it'll never happen. And that is what I want you to understand. Whether it is a personal goal, a professional goal, you're worthy of it. You can do it. But the only person who can make it happen is you. And it starts in here. I want to encourage you if you are stuck. And I want to say, you're not broken. Nothing's wrong with you. Nothing sets you apart from this person over here who's gotten there. You don't need more money. You don't need a leg up. You don't need to sell out in order to be there. You can get there too. You just need to rewire this guy, your brain. You're wired to believe that you're broken. You're wired to believe that you can't. You're wired to believe that you need something outside of you to make it happen. But you don't. You just need to rewire your brain and then act on the things that you believe when you rewire, and watch what life does for you. Watch how life changes around you. Watch how your reality, when you believe you're worthy of love, watch how your standards shift and you attract the things that are actually good for you. Because you believe that you're worthy of love and you believe you're worthy of good things, you won't realize that your subconscious doesn't tolerate bad things anymore. It's not like this magic that takes place. It's just what happens in here. I'm not trying to shame anyone. This is not about shame. This is not pointing the finger. This is not me trying to punch you in the gut. I want you to take your power back. I want you to take your mind back, because that's where your power is. Yes, hard things happened. Yes, your childhood was rough. Yes, people said mean things. Yes, it's hard to overcome. Yes, people doubted you. Yes, you felt fear and failure. But that doesn't mean you have to believe that your current experience is the limit of your potential. So I want to leave you with one final encouragement. You are one decision away from a new neuro path. One belief away from a new behavior. And in essence, one thought away from a new reality. Choose the thought that builds the life you want, not the one that protects the life you hate. And know that I love you and I'm rooting for you, and you can do this because you are capable. I'll see you next time.